Coach Pena here for the Football Engineer podcast, and today we got my boy Kenny Lee from Cal State Dominguez Hills. He's a fullback, also a center defensive midfielder from Culver City, California. How you doing today, Kenny?
I'm doing good, Julian. Thanks for having me on. Really looking forward to it.
What's a day in your life look like as a football player at Cal State Dominguez Hills, and also what's your major?
So I'm a journalism major at CSU DH, and a typical day starts pretty early. I commute to our school from Culver City. We have weights at 7 a.m., so I normally get up at around I'd say around 6. And then I leave my house by say 6:15, 6:20. I get to school by around 6:45, and then yeah, weight starts at 7. We're in there for normally like around 45 minutes. During the fall, the lifting is a little bit it's not as heavy. A lot of it is just like recovery, injury prevention, things like that. And then right after that, we go to training at 8 a.m. That normally goes around 90 minutes maybe, so we get done at around like 9:30, sometimes 10. And every training is different. Sometimes you have like high low days, sometimes it's literally just like a walkthrough. Normally after that, I go to the training room to try to do some recovery, normally like an ice bath or some Normatec, something like that. And then later on at 4, I have class, so I'll do that. And then in between, class and training, I'll probably try to get some homework done, get ahead of things. And then, yeah, head home after that. And you pretty much just rinse and repeat throughout the week.
So you would say it's a lot of like time management to make sure that you have time to
Yeah, yeah.
prep for class and for training and everything.
Definitely, yeah, yeah. It's all about time management and balance, balancing being a student, balancing being an athlete, and then, obviously trying to balance, having fun and other things like that.
Would you say it's harder to balance your studies with everything, or it's pretty straightforward, or you get used to it?
I think you do get used to it. I mean, like when I was a freshman, I did struggle a little bit with balancing it all, but to be honest, like you do get used to it, but I don't think it ever like yeah, I mean being a student athlete is always going to make it a little bit more challenging, because we have so much going on the field. But it's just something that eventually it does get easier sort of over time.
And then how much time would you say you have for your social life?
But during the fall, not as much. I mean, every now and then there'll be something that comes up that maybe we'll go and do as a team, or I'll see some friends and maybe we'll go do something. But during the season we'll be on the road for a lot of games, or we have training literally every day. We typically the NCAA you get one day off a week.
Yep.
So if you can maybe squeeze some free time or some social life in that one day off, then good for you, I guess. But a lot of the time, those days are just used to literally sleep and just catch up on things that maybe you weren't able to do during the week. So it can be a bit challenging. But I think just being around like your teammates and stuff every day, that's plenty of you're with your friends literally every day at training. So that makes up for maybe not having as much time to do stuff off the field.
And then, what was your recruiting journey like, and how did you choose Cal State Dominguez Hills?
Yeah, so I chose my recruiting journey was fairly straightforward. I really started hitting it hard once I was a senior in high school.
Okay.
I emailed a ton of coaches, a ton of schools, all like up and down California, a few like out of state, but mainly ones in California. And obviously Dominguez was one of those schools. So Patrick, our assistant coach, he saw me play a couple of times at like a Surf Cup showcase thing. And from there I went to the Dominguez Hills ID camp. And I went to the ID camp, and when I was in club in high school, I was a defender. So I was playing like center back. And then when I went to this ID camp, one of the DH coaches, Eddie Garcia, he asked me if I like played any other positions. And I told him like, oh, I could probably play fullback or something like that. And he said, well, why don't you go into the middle? And I was like, okay, yeah, like I could do that. I played there a little bit when I was, like much younger, like maybe like 10, 12, stuff like that. And I had a good camp. I played pretty well. And then I put together another highlight reel because I had a highlight reel just of like being a defender. And then
Okay.
once they had sort of shown interest in me playing in the middle, I made one for as a midfielder. And then like I want to say like a week later, Eddie Soto called me and gave me an offer, and that was that. To be honest, I didn't have that many offers coming out of high school. I had one like Division 3 offer in like Illinois or something, but really other than that, I didn't have too many offers. I like physically I didn't have necessarily the profile that I think a lot of like schools are looking for. I wasn't like super athletic or something like that. But yeah, thankfully DH saw something in me, and it was pretty much a no brainer to commit there.
And then you were mentioning that you didn't say per se have the profile that a lot of schools were looking for. How would you describe your play style?
I would say scrappy, probably, and energetic are probably two words that I would use. I mean, every time, like, I just think that, there's not a ton that you can necessarily control on the field, but you can always control your work rate. And I've always been like a good defender. Like, I've always had like a knack for it for whatever reason. I've always enjoyed doing it. So whenever I play, I try to just bring like a lot of energy, a lot of fight, things like that. I enjoy, going into duels and things like that. Obviously, being a DH, I tried to develop the other side of my game as well, like being a little bit more like technically, just being like technically better, working on my speed of play, stuff like that. But yeah, I would say energy and sort of scrappy are sort of how I would typically describe my play style.
And then you're very tactically versatile in that you can play as an outside back, you can play as a holding midfielder. What do you think has contributed to that?
I think playing in the middle was something that I played UPSL with one of our assistants, Pat. Actually, I played UPSL with him the season I went to DH, and that was really my first time being in the midfield along other like adults and college players. And I think just my energy really was something that was big for me in there. I was sort of when I first started winning there, I was more of like a box to box guy.
Okay.
And then once I got to DH, I think they just saw like obviously I had like quite a good defensive ability. I was good
Yeah.
at like winning tackles and things like that. And I also think my reading of the game is pretty good, especially defensively. Like I think I kind of know where to be to break up plays. And so that's when they sort of transitioned me into more of a six. And so yeah, I just think my ability to sort of read the game and intercept things, and then you combine that sort of with my energy and just my sort of defensive prowess. I think that it makes sort of fullback and the six sort of like a perfect it kind of just brings all those skills together, and so that's why I think those have kind of been the two positions where I've found the most success at.
Yeah. And then what made you fall in love with soccer?
I don't know, I've just been playing it, as long as I can remember. My dad's Irish, and so I have a lot of relatives and stuff that have also played the game. And yeah, just there was no other sport or really anything else that ever kind of, brought out the emotion that, soccer did in me. And I just wasn't ever really that good at anything else either. So just for as long as I can remember, I always loved playing it. I always like it was all I ever wanted to do. You know what I mean? And I don't know. It's one of those things. I think it's hard to explain. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that you don't know why, but for whatever reason, I was just infected with this love for the game, and thankfully it's stuck with me. So
Yeah, it just like it catches your eye and then it's just there forever.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like I've asked my parents and stuff, like like why did I start playing soccer, and I guess when I was doing it when I was very young, like someone told them like, oh, he actually is like pretty good. He might actually be able to like play this, and yeah, ever since then just have just been falling in love with it ever since. So yeah.
Then going back to your younger days, since we were talking about it, what was the key to your development to help you get to this point?
I think for me, like what I would, it's just enjoying it, just enjoying it. I think that was when I was playing my best, was just when I was really enjoying playing. I played on some teams where I just wasn't having fun. Like I just wasn't having fun. Going to training felt like a chore or something like that. And I think like you won't really develop if you aren't enjoying it. So I think just being on a team where you enjoy playing, you're playing a lot. I think that's the number one thing for your development, is playing a lot, and also trying to play with people who are better than you. I know a lot of people shy away from that, and they don't want to play with people better than them. But truth be told, that's the only way you get better, is if you play with people who are better than you. When I was younger, I used to train with older age groups, guys who were like 2 years older than me. Before I got to college, I was playing with like UPSL guys who are much older than me, and that's the only way you get better, is if you kind of go outside your comfort zone a little bit and really test yourself. I think if you just play on a team where you're constantly the best player, you're never gonna actually know if you're improving and things like that. So yeah, I would say just enjoy it, make sure you're having fun, and then also try to test yourself as much as possible.
I know you mentioned your one of your parents is Irish, and I think I read somewhere that you played briefly in England for a bit of time. What was that like?
Yeah, I lived in the UK for around like 9 months, 9 or 10 months,
Okay.
and I was just kind of over there. I was like on the fringe of sort of getting into these academies. They have like what are like called like developments, but I thought it was a really good experience for me. I think just being over there, obviously, soccer it's embedded into the culture. Everybody plays it over there. Everybody knows about the game. So I felt like it really helped me. It really helped me just kind of like, I was just constantly around it. I was constantly playing it. I was constantly seeing it and being amongst it. And yeah, I think it really helped me. It really helped my speed of play. It really helped me just kind of understand, like just have even more of a passion for it. And so then when I came back over here, I think it really yeah, it had really accelerated a lot of parts of my game.
And around what age was that?
I was 10. Yeah, I was 10 when I was in the UK. So I was still pretty young, but yeah, it was a great experience for me. I was in Manchester,
Oh,
and
there
and
you
yeah,
go.
it was something I still look back on.
And then, what advice would you have for a young player who's trying to make it to the same level that you've been able to achieve?
Yeah, I would just say work hard. Just really, really, really work hard. I think today it's even harder to get to the level where I am than like when I was trying to get recruited because of like the transfer portal.
Yeah.
Now coaches can just go and look at thousands of other college players looking to leave their programs. So, if you're in high school and you're trying to play at a top Division 2 level or even D1, you have to just work hard. And you have to understand that you have to stand out amongst basically people from all over the world. I mean, I've
Yeah.
played against guys in my conference from Japan, from Sweden, from Italy, from all over the world. And that's who you're competing against. Like it's not good enough to just go out on the field and say, oh, it's, just people in my state or just people in my city or even just the country. Like, you really have to work hard. You really have to grind. And then on top of that, I would say that it's really important to do the hard work in like off the field recruiting as well. Like send out as many emails as you can, like take a chance, go to some ID camps, If you aren't putting yourself out there, people aren't going to see you, Like I didn't play for LA Galaxy or LAFC or the US Youth National Team. Like, it's hard to get the exposure you need. So I would just say it's really important to put yourself out there as much as you can and just work as hard as you possibly can. And if you do those things, then I think there's a good chance that an opportunity will come your way. And just be kind of okay with getting more no's than yeses. I think that's just the nature of recruiting. You're not going to get like 10 offers unless you're some generational player, but all you need is one. All I needed was one, and once you get that one, that's it. You can take that wherever you want to go.
Yeah, all it takes is an opportunity and just really making the most out of it. I mean, I think that's definitely what
Exactly.
you've done.
Yeah.
You had a lot of success and just taking that opportunity and making the most of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, what do you have any life advice for people?
I just think try to do things you enjoy. Try to I would say to try and soak in certain moments, especially in soccer. Because you don't know how long you're gonna get to play the game for, and so it's very easy to just kind of like let it all pass you by. But I think it's important to really sometimes take a second to just process and understand. If you win something or you have a great achievement, really try to soak in the moment and just try to just do things that you're passionate about. I mean, one day eventually everyone has to hang up their boots or you know do something that maybe they don't want to do. So don't take anything for granted. I'd say don't take anything for granted. Do things that you enjoy, and occasionally stop and smell the roses, I guess. So yeah, that would be my advice.
And then, how do you feel like adversity and setbacks have shaped you?
I think that without certain setbacks and adversity, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, I'm someone who I got cut from an academy team. I then moved to another club and didn't have a very good experience there. Wasn't playing a lot. Didn't get along with the coach, and so I've had to deal with adversity constantly. But I think what it taught me was just that you can't just expect things to fall in your lap. You know what I mean? You can't like expect that just opportunities will just come to you. You have to work for them. You have to earn them, and you have to continue to earn them. Every single day. I think it's really fortunate because ever since then, I've always had sort of a mindset of like the best ability is availability,
Yeah,
and so that every time I got a chance on the field, if it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I was always looking to turn that into more and more and more and more and more. And I don't know if I would have had that same mindset, that same mentality without someone, telling me, oh, you're not good enough, or going through, like you say, the adversity that I did. I think it really just motivated me. Even in college, we've had quite the 4 year run, but the one year that we sort of had a down year, it really pushed me to work much harder in the off season, kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, work on the areas of my game that I really needed to improve on. And so had we not had that season, it's very possible that I could have been complacent. So I think
yeah,
adversity is super important, and it's not always easy to look at it as a good thing. It certainly doesn't always feel like that in the moment, but I think there's always lessons to take from it, and as long as you do that, I think it's always valuable to deal with some adversity.
yeah. I think you put it very well. Building off of that, I got some quick fire questions for you, bro. Who is your footballing idol?
Right now it's Declan Rice. I've actually been on the Rice train before every. I feel like everybody is now, but I've been sort of riding for him. But yeah, I love the way he plays. Like he's I don't know. I look up to him a lot just because of how much energy he has, how much passion he plays with, the amount of ground he covers. So yeah, I'll say Declan Rice.
And then Nike or Adidas?
I've been an Adidas guy. Nothing against Nike, but just to be honest, it was more of like a superstitious thing. Like I'd been playing well in Adidas, and so I figured if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
No,
And so yeah,
yeah.
I've been wearing Adidas for a while.
And then what's your favorite club?
Arsenal, yeah,
Arsenal.
up the Gunners. Hopefully we bring it home this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and they got
hopefully we get it done.
the second place mentality right there, man.
Yeah, unfortunately we've been the bridesmaid the last few years. Hopefully this year we're finally the bride. It's looking good though. It's looking good.
It's not that they don't have a good team or anything. It's just I think it's just a mentality thing. At the end, they find a way to give it to somebody
Yeah,
else.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah,
And
I,
then
I think I think this may finally be the group that gets us over the line, but still a long way to go.
and then what's your favorite boots of all time?
Good, that is a good question. Off the top of my head, the boots that I just remember, like when they came out, they're actually not Adidas. Was the original black and orange Hypervenoms. When
Okay,
those first
yeah,
came out, I was like I don't know, those were just like I'd never seen anything like them. Like they were unbelievable. I remember seeing, and I know they like re-released them or whatever, but I don't know. There's something about those original ones that just like they blew me away when when I was younger. I thought they were unreal.
yeah. I've always been an Adidas guy, and those were one of the first Nike boots where I was like, oh man, that's something different right there.
Yeah.
And then what do you have on your pregame playlist? What's like your hype song or your go-to artist?
I tend to mix it up a bit, but definitely Blue Bucks Clan. I listen to them. I try to put in some like Rauw Alejandro because I think you need to have a mix of like Spanish music that kind of gets you in the rhythm, into the groove sort of the game, but then also maybe you want some more like hardcore like rap stuff to kind of get the intensity going. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So normally kind of a mix. And yeah, I'd say those are kind of two artists that are typically typically kind of in my playlist. I know last year though, like we went on kind of a run and we were listening to house music before the games. So sometimes like if a certain genre is getting the job done, then you might just stick with that. But yeah.
yeah. And anything else you want to tell people, Kenny, or any questions you have for me?
Yeah, just best of luck with whoever. Best of luck with whoever's listening to this your footballing journey. Hopefully, hopefully all goes well. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Yeah.